Okay, so this class is on designing your silk standards. Standards, pennants, there's a lot of different terms we're going to go over. And this is what I'm talking about when I say designing your silk pennants is the fluttery things you've been seeing at war, at events that are doing using silk dye or any other technique you want. We're not going to talk about how to dye your pennant here. But a little bit about like do's and don'ts when you're laying out your pennants. You can see behind me a couple of pennants hung up. I will hold this one up just so you can get an example of, this is one that I did fairly recently. You can see it's the long, skinny, flappy type ones. So in this class, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the history of this so you can get like a little bit of grounding, and then some disclaimers about like what we're not doing that is, you know, not completely accurate. But then just talk about like how to lay it out, what to do, what not to do when you are designing this type of item. So if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. And then at the end of this, if people want to, I've got time. If people want to stick around, if you have any ideas that you'd like to be like, oh, what would you do with this or that? We can actually like play with one of your heraldry, or heck, a friend's heraldry or somebody across the country's heraldry, and be like, well, if this was a heraldry I was laying out, here's what I might do with that. Let's get going. Okay, so a little bit of history of the standard, a little bit of history of like heraldic flags through time. We've got evidence of banners of various sorts with pictures of who you are for quite some time. Some of the earliest we've got really solid knowledge of is like 9th century. We've got a lot from Bayeux Tapestry. So from the Bayeux Tapestry, you can see a whole bunch of different flag type things. Most of them are this like a square with a bunch of fluttery bits on the end. But there's a bunch of different examples there. One moment. Okay, so we have some from the 14th century. This is a lot more like what we've been doing. You see the ones like on top of the pavilion here. And then this from the 16th century is a lot like what we're doing. Very muchly so, where you've got it all laid out and it's very elaborate and whatnot. Banners were used for a lot of different things. This was a funerary type banner. They were used to indicate, you know, who you are, your various awards, your lineage, what army you're with, who you're serving, and so on and so forth. So lots of different things, but largely the banner, the purpose of the banner is the same as the purpose of any heraldry, which is, this is me, don't attack me, I'm your friend. Or vice versa if it's an enemy. But basically, like, who am I about to shoot is what a lot of this stuff is for. So this next slide is a huge disclaimer. The purpose of this class is not to teach you how to make historically accurate banners, and the things I was just showing you are not historically accurate banners. Banners in the Middle Ages, they were done on silk. They were done more often on linen, something that would hold up a little while. This right here is dyed. This is a very modern technique on very modern, you know, a very thin silk. This is dyed. Banners in period would have been painted. Almost, well, they could be embroidered, they could be stamped. Oftentimes they were painted. Embroidery was rich, very rich, but you're not going to have a lot of embroidered things because that takes a while. It's very expensive. It could be appliqued. Once again, it takes a little while, a little bit less expensive. Most often they were painted. They were painted using, honestly, I swear, like gesso, oil paints, and like shellac. I have no idea how these things fluttered. And somebody else has done lots of looking into this. And there's some really good information on, and I'm happy to share this entire presentation or even just this link, but there's a medieval painted flags article written by someone who just goes through all the evidence that we've got. And I really recommend that if you ever want to look into that. That's not what we're talking about here today. It was just a big old disclaimer about this not being period. But you can still see that the end result is has a period effect, which is what we're going for. Period effect, but also can be mass produced. So the key thing is that the standard is not your device. Your device is extremely specific. It's laid out. It's, hold on, let me just mute something here. A lot of dinging. It's laid out very specifically. It's registered. It's registered. It's just so. It has very specific rules it has to follow, or else the heralds will just toss it back to you. Your standard has rules that are recommended and should have something to do with your heraldry, but is not your heraldry. You can omit pieces. You could just focus on like one section of it. You can repeat things. You can shift things around. You don't have to have heraldry. I've had people come to pennant making and say, well, my stuff's not passed. I'm like, I don't care. I just want you to have a flippy flag that looks good. So like, what would it be if you were to register it? So no one's ever going to get turned away with a flag at an event going, well, is that passed? Well, no, because this isn't really my device anyway. It's just kind of device-esque. So things you can see here, well, we'll get into it, but you can see this is very much reminiscent of, this is my husband Braden's device. This is very reminiscent of his device and nothing else is. But this would be a very reasonable pennant for him to do. Okay, so some key items going from your device to a standard, a pennant. Standard is kind of the long tapering flag. So take your heraldry elements, you can rearrange them, you can repeat them. I just said this, you can omit them. You can add elements. You can add elements for family members. I might put a violin on mine. You can add elements for household. So for instance, I could put a giant slug on mine for being part of Slug House. Group, I'm a member of Arnhold, so you'll often see a moose on mine. Awards, you could put a pelican on there, you could put a maple leaf on there, you could put a white belt on there. And then if you have those awards. And then you can put mottos and text on there. Now keep in mind, that's only something that people are gonna be able to see pretty close up unless you make it hugic. But still, it's nice. You can put that stuff on there. And once again, this isn't the class to talk about how to dye the silk. You can always go over that later. But all these things are totally options. Okay. I strongly recommend adding borders to your standard. Adding a border to your standard, even if you don't have a border on your device. If you have a border on your device, it's almost a no-brainer. But if you don't have a border on your device, adding a border can still give it a super finished look, a lot of pop to be able to see that, instead of just like, because otherwise what you're seeing is, you're seeing this white of your banner against maybe the white cloudy of the sky. And like, where did the banner end? It just doesn't catch your eyes as much. Borders are really nice. In period, oftentimes they would put like fringe all over it, like for real fringe. I have no idea how these things flapped at all. So anyway, very much suggesting a border. Also, you might consider if you've got different elements going on, maybe some division, adding some extra division in it. So something like I've got a red apple and a green frog, and maybe even though it's not on your device, maybe, you know, some sort of, I don't know, an embattled line or something, you know, so something to kind of separate thing one from thing two, especially if you've got color next to color or metal next to metal. Okay, this is especially for our silk dyeing. We use a method called a Gutta resist. That's G-U-T-T-A, not cheese. Anyway, so you're drawing these lines and then you're painting or dyeing inside the lines. For the love of all that is good and holy, do not show up and try to put this in with all of these details onto your silk. Your silk, it's gonna be like, you want big, bold details. Something simple, because this is 20 feet away. Like I can't get that far from the computer, but 20 feet away, you're never gonna see all those lines, even if you do bother to put them in. You want big images. Use up your space, simple outlines, and big kind of cartoonish images. In fact, I often find it worthwhile, if you are using Google to try to figure out what your thing should look like, to Google cartoon Pegasus, for instance. You Google cartoon, whatever it is, may give you the level of detail that would be wise for you to put in. Okay, so a couple things. One, the banners that we've been doing, these you do get, this particular silk, we get from Dharma Trading Company. You can see it just keeps going. It's actually 90 inches long. There's lots of room. There's lots and lots and lots of room. And it's 20 feet in the air, and it's flapping in the breeze. So like, make your things big. And you've got lots of room to work with, but some room is better than others. We're gonna talk about that. Before I go on, this just seems like a good place to pause. Is there any questions about anything I've said so far? I see somebody trying to join. It isn't quite all the way in yet. So, okay. One moment. Sorry, somebody just sent a message. Okay, so, all right. I said that it's long and some space is better than others. By the way, this one right here, this top left one, is a good representation of how long it actually is. These are kind of seem short and stubby. They're longer than that. Like however you think it is, it's longer than that. If you take a piece of paper long ways and you fold it in thirds, so it's 11.5 inches long and then a third of a page wide, that's close to how long it is. That's a reasonable proportion to like pencil out some ideas on. It's still a little bit longer than that, but it'll get you there. But here's the key problem. I mentioned it's 20 feet in the air. It's also flapping in the breeze. And this is important because, and I'm gonna show a video here in just a moment, because whatever is closest to the pole is going to be what you'll see. You will not see whatever's at the tip in any significant way. And I will prove this to you in just a moment. Just gotta get something up here. So close to being ready, guys. Okay, so this is a really cool site called Flagwaver. It's like somebody said, Juliana, what's the website you would like me to develop the most? And then they develop that exact website. I know this is probably gonna be a little bit choppy for those of you who are looking at the screen, but right now you're looking at a flag and you're thinking, okay, well, it's kind of breezy and sure, it's flapping around. It's a little hard to see maybe the black section. Well, let's make it longer and you'll see just how hard to see the black section is. Give me a second here. Okay, so here's an example that was done for Battle of the Nations. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so here is an example of one that's long. For starters, it's long enough that it's often drooping out of the picture, but like try to see what's going on near the tips. Very difficult. But in this case, it actually works out fine because you can assume that the tips are blue and red and white striped. It's pretty easy. Could someone let me know if you're being able to see and hear reasonably over this Zoom connection?
I'm fine.
Okay, good. So it's transmitting well. All right.
We can hear and see everything. The flag's really choppy, though.
Yeah, I'm sure. You can kind of get the feeling of the flag. So what I want to look at, we're going to go back to this presentation here for a moment. What I want to show you is you want to weight your images towards the pole. So let's look at these top images. This one, for instance, right here. You've got some identifiers, which we'll talk about over here. And then you've got these 3 dragonflies and this boar, and the boar is in the middle of the remaining space. What that means is that boar is going to be very difficult to tell what the hay is going on. Let's look at that. Okay. Now I just said what it was, but can anybody really tell me what that charge is with any confidence? It's pretty hard to see, isn't it? You can see at the front, you've got the pelican, you've got this one dragonfly, the St. Jude cross for their household, but it's hard to see. By the way, in this level of wind, we're also wondering if we should be like tightening ropes and stuff. This is a decent amount of wind, but still, you can get a feel for this. This is a good type of banner. This layout is fine for hanging in a hall, but not so much for hanging in the wind. Give one more example that's similar to this. This one was designed for Her Grace Sage. It's not bad because it's a repeated element, but still you're gonna get the view of like these first 2 elements and the rest of them are pretty hard to see. The key takeaway here is that we really want to keep things fairly weighted toward the front. So here's one for Mistress Heloise. And you ask, why do you have all these banners laid out on your computer? Braden, that's why. He likes laying out banners. So here you can see she's got this division, but it's actually in the first third of her banner is pretty much all the important stuff. One more. This is for Mistress Saira. Come on, you can do it. There we go. Once again, she's got this division and she kept the main information in that first third, in this case, third to a half of her banner. All right, I'm gonna close this page down here because otherwise it makes everything super choppy. But you can see what you wanna do is weight your stuff towards the pole and put all your main elements in the first third of your banner. You really wanna be able to see this. First half of the banner is sort of okay, but like that first third of the banner is, and remember, the third of the banner is still like pretty long. So the first third of this banner is, for me, it's like probably like about here, all the way to the otter from the beginning. The banners are very long. Okay. And then what do we do with the rest of it? It's pretty, we want to show it. So what you're looking for there is bold colors, repeated elements, you know, repeated stripes, repeated like a background, like Sir Balinor with his ermine background. Although I'd make them bigger than that because you'd want to be able to see them. repeated backgrounds are awesome. They're such a pain in the bum to do, but they're so nice looking. This is one I designed for my daughter who, as an example, has no heraldry, but this is what she wanted. I felt pretty good about the repeated paint brushes here, so you could kind of see what was going on. So, all right. All right, put elements close to the pole. So we talked a little bit about those main identifiers. Let's go back to this one. We have a lot of examples here of these identifiers and not everybody has them, and that's fine. Some people are like, I don't want to be, I don't want to have every award I've ever earned somehow pasted onto my banner. I don't want to be like a walking address. I'm from Artemisia, Arnhold, this household, you know, so that's actually what you're really seeing here, like Artemisia, Arnhold, daughter of me and Brayton, as an example. That's my daughter's banner that I did for her. And that's fine. So here's some examples that don't have any of those. Actually, this one does have the pelican. Examples that don't have any of those, and those are totally cool too. Just weight your stuff to the front. Don't put it in the center of your whole banner. So put all main charges in the first third to half of your banner. The rest of the banner would be best to leave with bold colors and or repeated patterns. All right, heraldic rules. Is someone going to come and stop you and smack your hand if you try to put blue on purple? No, no, the heralds don't get to decide what you do with your banner. Will anyone be able to make out that that was a blue thing on a purple thing? Also no, no for sure. At a distance, there might look like a smudge, or maybe it'll just look purple. Like, we won't be able to see that. The purpose of heraldic color on color and metal on metal rules is to be able to see things at a distance, preferably like at dusk, or, you know, as it's getting a little bit dim. You want to, maybe when it's dusk, you won't be able to tell that's blue on yellow, but you'll still see a phi on there. But still try to keep whatever your main charges are, try to keep them distinct so that it's color on metal or vice versa. And also, if you've got two sections next to each other, so like, let's say I'm going to do a square for Arnhold and a square for, actually, let's use a different one. Let's say you wanted to do a square for Griffin's Lair and a square for Artemisia. And for the Griffin's Lair one, you wanted a blue background, for instance. It's a lovely color. I totally like it. Artemisia's got a black background. Okay, now it's getting dim and it just looks dark. So even though those two things aren't, like, you've got maybe a yellow griffin on a blue background, and that's good, but the blue next to the black, you might want to put those like catty corner to each other, for instance, to try to keep that from being next to one another. It's very difficult to see. All right, so similar colors to avoid next to each other, even with divisions. Blue, purple, and black. Those look exactly the same as it gets dim. Red and orange, frankly, sometimes those look exactly the same in broad daylight. Yellow and orange, same thing. Green and blue, same thing. And some of that depends on your dyes. This green dye looks awfully blue. This one looks like neon yellow green. So it all kind of depends on what dyes you're using. So here are some basic shapes that we use. Now, the ones we get from Dharma Trading, I mentioned that they're 90 inches long, and they're 22 inches wide. This is just a really good shape, and they even come hemmed, so literally you don't have to do anything to it. If you have silk cracks, I know you do. Like, if you just have a roll of silk and you want to make something of your own, like, you can do whatever you want with it. But the ones that we get, like, it's awful.
Actually, I don't.
Oh, no.
I don't have white silk around. It's very sad.
That is super shocking. So in any case, yeah, if you have silk, you know, laying around, you can do whatever you want. But Dharma Trading Company, you get the scarves, and they're really easy to use. And so then you have some choices on how you want to do this. So we do have examples of just rectangular flags in period. Not a lot of rectangular flags that are that long, but once again, it's fluttery in the breeze. It's super pretty. If you just wanted to dye the entire rectangle and not have any treatment on the end, it'll look awesome. But it'll lose just a tiny bit of that period effect, because everything we see in period is either like it's less rectangular and more like square. Typically, we don't have long, super rectangular ones that we see in period. So it'll lose just a little bit of that period flair, but it'll be easy, so bonus. But if you want to go for using that same scarf shape, but doing a little bit of something to it, like I said, to give that period flair, here are some things you can do. So one is just a single rounded taper. And I would probably round this just a little bit more, like the way this looks here. It looks kind of like there's a corner, but whatever. Having it basically just taper down. You could see an example of this one here. This is actually, it's straight on the bottom and round and gone down and then rounded. Here's an example of a double rounded one. So you can see kind of an example of that straight rounded look in period. Okay, a double rounded taper. We sort of saw that one as well. Double rounded taper, I'd make it fairly long. Like they get super flappy and fluttery and it's very cool. And for those who haven't done this process with the silk dye, which is not the purpose of this class, but I'll tell you, if you want to ask yourself like, well, do I need to hem all that? Because that sounds like hell on toast. No, the process that we use, that Gouda, which is not cheese, it acts as a ripstop. It acts as a seam. So you could do a seam on it, but you really don't have to. The Gouda does it for you. So you can just lay out a line however you want it, and then just cut the outside of that so it leaves the Gouda behind as a seam. A double rounded taper, once again, same sort of thing, nice and fluttery, super flappy. Give me a second here. I want to see if, oh, here we go. I'm going to do a quick drawing. I've never used this tool before. So you see this double pointed taper. This is very period with this double pointed kind of zigzag pattern. But typically speaking, people don't do it like that. They would do it where it was straight out to the tips, and then they'd take the tips and go like inward somewhat, and then like that, rather than having it come down first. And the reason why is, one, you get a similar visual effect, and look, you get this extra triangle bonus. And maybe you'll make that into a separate banner somebody can put on their spear or something like that. So this is a very favorite shape because straight lines are kind of easier to lay out for a lot of folks, and then you get like a bonus banner, whereas the extra in your rounded taper and your double rounded taper, that extra is, it's trash. You can't really do much with that. So any questions on these shapes? Fortunately, I know you can hear me because Prax answered a question earlier. So, all right. Oh, hold on. I'm still drawing, apparently. There we go. And the drawing's still there. All right, let me try that again. Clear all drawings. Hooray. Okay, so layout process. I mentioned app work you start with. So you pick your shape, draw your shape. Oh, I see. Michelle, I'm going to mute you unless you want to just say hi first.
How do I do this?
Oh, you're there.
How do I say hi?
You're saying hi.
Oh, I don't do the electronic stuff, so.
But you're here. Good job. Okay, I'm going to mute you just so that, but there should be a mute, like a microphone looking button somewhere on your screen. So if you want to say anything, just hit that again and you'll unmute yourself. Oh, perfect. You did it. Okay, good. So for the layout process, you're going to pick your shape and and then, like I said, add a border. Really recommend it. And this border, all these borders here, like this is just a basic border. This border, Michelle, you keep unmuting yourself. I'm going to mute you one more time.
Juliana, I think you just muted yourself.
Muted yourself.
Absolutely just muted myself. Yes, thank you. Good times.
I think I have it figured out. I will hit mute right now.
Okay, so as I was saying, you can do like a pretty basic, solid, simple border. You can make even that simple, solid border a little bit more interesting by doing just some, a pattern of kind of patches of different color, just 2 color or even 3. But the fun really comes in, just for the record, if you have like an embattled chief on your heraldry, for instance, make that border embattled. Like, does it sound like a pain to do? Yes. But will it look awesome? Also, yes. Make it wavy. Make it, what's the one that like looks like dovetailing? Make it dovetail, make it whatever that is. It will look super cool, even though it will be a little bit of a pain to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like if you're doing this right here with the different patches and you're like, oh, each one's going to be 3 inches long, literally just eyeball it, guys. It doesn't have to be perfect, because once again, it's going to be 20 feet in the air and waving in the breeze. No one will see that this one was 3 1/8 inch, and then this other one was 2 3/8 of an inch. Like, they won't notice at all. So it doesn't have to be that overwhelming to try to get this perfect border on there. But add a border. And apparently I'm still drawing. There we go. Add some optional badges. Don't have to do this, but it's kind of fun. This is you know who I am. My banner says who I am, but who am I fighting for? Who am I with? So it could be a single element, like I am with Artemisia. Look how simple that was. And if somebody tries to tell me that the Artemisian Populist badge is somehow like more desirable, no, seriously, that's Artemisia. Very Artemisia right there. So anyway, or you could do the Populist badge. I'm sure that would be lovely. So you can do a single element. You can do multiple elements. We even saw, I'm going to go back up to the top here, further up. There we go. If you look at this guy, there are 7 different badges. And I'm sure this is showing his lineage to a certain extent. But holy free holies, guys, like you can do whatever you want. Like if you wonder whether or not it's period to do something like this, it is. Just different than you having to do it, but it's very period to show your allegiance, and whether it's to your kingdom, your barony, your shire, your household. For instance, I might put a MOAS symbol on mine. Although to be perfectly honest, if I'm at war, I don't really need anybody tracking me down to my tent to be MOAS. But I've seen people put, like when there was such a thing, like Kyrgenate symbols on it or that sort of thing. Having award type things on it is nice. I'm kind of done doing award symbols on mine. I only get award symbols when Braden does mine. Let's see if I did this one. So here's my example where I'm just like, look, I like having multiple on it because I'm very much Artemisia and Arnhold. But look, like it's a repeated pattern. Look how cool that looks. I did go ahead and stick the coronet onto the moose because I was Baroness of Arnhold. But that's all I've been putting on there. But you can do whatever you want. If you want to do 6, like go to town. Eventually it's going to look, busy. But who cares? It's your banner. Make it whatever you want. Okay, add heraldic charges. So we kind of talked about this earlier, but just as an example. So we've done the layout of your, you know, a little bit of who you are, your address, Artemisia, Arnhold, you know, member of the Pelicans, member of the Laurels, whatever. And then we put on, like, for Braden, we put on these divisions, these borders, and his violin. And then, like, what am I going to do down here? Like, shoot, let's do those divisions again. That was interesting. Because we're not going to see this part right here at all. But if you see these divisions here, your brain will be like, you know what? I bet they're awfully like the ones I can see up here. So a repeated pattern. And then I know oftentimes he'll like to do this where he'll add like a motto in the white. But we do that afterwards because that's why God invented Sharpie markers. Okay, so we're getting down to it, and then let's, like, if anybody wants to stick around and play with their own, we'll get out Yield Paint and go from there. So some good resources for banners and period. Lars Daughter is frankly a good resource for literally everything in the world. He just has like links to museums, extant examples of insert thing here. So he does have banners. I found this to be a good link on different types of banners through period as well. This is that same PDF about all the medieval evidence for painted, it says painted flags, but painted banners, painted standards. And then here is my link for how to make, like how to actually do the silk dyeing, which if there are questions about that, we can get into it. So that's the end of this, which means it's time to see who wants to throw anything out there. So if anybody has like heraldry that they'd like me to play with, maybe message it to me, or you could probably maybe share it here somehow. But if you message it to me, I'll get it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of run through. I'll pick somebody's heraldry. Maybe we'll do. What do we have for Her Majesty? I'm just going to go into Oscar and see what's passed recently. Another example of how I could have been more prepared. All right. Just seeing if Her Highness does look like she at least has some attempt at arms. I'm not sure if it passed or not.
They passed.
It passed.
It's purple, and then she's got the flower, and then Damon's got his rose.
There you go. So that one right there, for instance.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so let's just play with this. She's our princess. If things hadn't gone horribly crazy, she'd be our queen. So let's go with it. So if this is your banner here, that's your scarf. And for what? Stop that. For right now, well, let's just do a one with the triangular end. So we'll just do an end like that, just to get a feel for it. All right. I think that Her Highness deserves some Artemisian something. And if you've ever worked with me doing heraldry, this is my tried and true blob layout method. So don't expect some high art in Paintbrush right now. So for instance, I would probably do it where it's like, okay, so let's get the Artemision pile in here. All right. And then let's put a crown. Like she can use this while she's queen. Like, so that right there is definitely a crown. Got it? Crown? Everybody agreed? Now we know that we'll fill in some colors, because colors, it's important to see, because if that's black and that's yellow, well, the crown can't be yellow. So we could do black, for instance. Might do purple, but then that's getting a little weird. Let's do black. We'll do a black crown. That is a black crown. You with me? And then generally speaking, the rest of it's probably going to have a lot of purple in it. But let's give her a border. Any guesses, any suggestions on what we should do for her border?
Battlement. The one that looks like the I don't know, the walls.
Yeah, the crenellations, right? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Agree. Exactly. Hey, stop that. Give me 1 second here. Apparently, I'm just a little bit more. Just a little bit more anal than I suggested to you. I'm not gonna draw pictures, but there we go. Embattled here. Come on. Sorry.
So an easier way to do that in paint
Yeah.
is to make squares and cut the backside off.
Yeah, that's a solid idea. At this point, I'm here, but yeah, exactly. And we'll just do the first like bit of it. You can kind of envision where we're going from that. Yeah, one more. Just copy paste. Okay, so we took this whole thing, which is slowly slanting upward. Oh God, this is so. Work with me here, guys. 20 feet in the air, flapping in the breeze. All right, good enough for right now. Okay, so and so on. I'll just complete so that we can. And I would keep that going all the way, like around the tip and everything like that. So keep it going all the way here and there. But I'm certainly not doing this while you guys are watching. So we'll do the background of this purple. Let's just pick a nice purple from like Crayola purple. No, hold on. Crayola purple here. What the hey? Come on, paint, work with me. There we go, purple. Okay, nice purple there. Officially Crayola purple. I think that her fleur feels very like primary to me. Does anybody know her particularly well? Just if there's one of these that she prefers more than the other?
I know I've given her lots of fleur stuff before and she likes them.
Excellent, we're gonna go with that. So this fleur, we want it as big as we can get it. Yes, like that. So as big as we can get it, because, and close to the main charge here, like so, right? Another example might be to do flower, fleur, fleur, or sorry, flower, fleur, flower. Another example would be maybe just do a repeated all the way down. So actually, let's just do that. So we're gonna do maybe a flower there, you know, next to the fleur. So we'll just do a few fleurs down here. As the space gets slowly smaller and smaller. And if you do have a tapered badge, your items will get smaller and smaller, and that's totally cool. And then let's do the same thing with this flower here. Come on. I could do my blob method, but like I do have this here to copy and paste, so I'm not giving up on my blob method. So flower, fleur, flower, fleur, and so on. But another example might be to put, for instance, maybe charges from His Majesty's here. So, one moment. James. Ooh, is it just D-A-M-O-N? Am I spelling that correctly?
DAMAN.
Ooh, I am terrible. I'm a terrible subject. Also, no. That's right.
Well, it's not king yet, so.
Well, yeah, but no, I'm just looking in Oscar for submitted heraldry. So you said it was roses. Can you tell me colors? Prax, do you know the colors of his stuff, or are you? She's
I
looking.
think it's a white rose, but I'll look in Oscar. Give me a second.
Oh, hey, no worries. So, like, let's just do a white circle. A purple circle. No, let's do.
Because I know he's got a bend that's blue and red, and then the white rose.
Right. So we just do like, here's a white rose here, right at the tip end, and which is not to say like that's a great place to put something. It's not super visible, but this isn't her, is it? It's him. So it's kind of one of those things like, like a tribute to Sweetie, like, and so I'll put some of his stuff on there. Okay, that's terrible. That's all right. I'll be able to fill it in. So maybe a couple roses, for instance. And so on. And Battle goes all the way around here. And now this is something that she's got. Now this might feel a little bit busy. She might not like that. She might just want like, the fleur and the flower and then just a bunch of purple. This layout is an example of how in every other way I'm very happy with my heraldry, but I find myself often disappointed by my heraldry because now when I'm laying out in this repeated fashion, I don't have elements that just look really awesome in that way. I've got a tree, I've got an otter, I've got a blue wavy line that I can do things with. But some folks have got like the repeated, who is it? Is it Sir Gregory that's got like it's not plates, it's the annulets in the background, like a background of just annulets. That looks so good. It looks so great. And I don't have anything like that. So this particular item right here, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to like super amazing layouts, but still, this is her. This is Her Highness right here. And it would definitely say, if you look at that, you're like, well, that's found her. She's there, right there. Or at least her tent is there. Wherever she put her banner, I found her. So there's that one. Let's just see if somebody messaged me. Ooh, let's do it. All right. Apparently I'm just gonna fill everything in. All right, I'm going to remove everything here. All right, let's do this one. I like the shading on the background. That'll be very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to make this here. We'll just stick it over here. Okay, so let's get our banner. So this is Magdalena's. Let's get our banner going here. Magdalena, I have really bad news for you. So bad news. This with the ermine, the white ermine on black, is A, going to look so cool. And B, you are going to hate every ounce of yourself dyeing around each of those because you have to get the black around each of them. Dyeing the black in the white, that's super easy. But dyeing around the white, like have helpers. Definitely have people come help you get around all those because you don't want the black to dry before you fill in the whole space, or else you get that wet leading edge or the dry leading edge and it looks blotchy. It'll look amazing and it'll be totally worth the effort. My brother-in-law has that exact pattern on his, and I was like, Merry Christmas, I hate your heraldry. So yeah, it happens. Okay, let's lay it out. It's gonna look so cool. Hold on, if I can figure out how to do a rectangle. All right, so Magdalena, do you want any sort of identifiers on your, this is longer than is need be, by the way, on your banner?
I would love Artemisia, the regular one pile,
Mhm.
and Stonegate.
All right, Stonegate. Stonegate's going to look like a blob, by the way, just so we're cleared. Not due to any lack of love for Stonegate. So do you want what I kind of had where it was like the 4 pieces and they were kind of alternating? Does that sound appealing to you?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to lay out a square here at the beginning. It's really easy to lay out a square in your silk, in case anybody's wondering like, oh, let me measure that and blah, blah, blah. No, it's just like paper. You just take your silk here and you just fold it over in a corner like so. And then, oh, there it is. There's your square right there. And then you just draw a line straight down. And they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be perfect. Holy moly. Okay, so there's one square, and let's subdivide that into 4 squares. 4 extremely, hey, hold on. Stop that. Perfect squares. No squares have been perfecter than those squares are right now. I'm going to do Artemisia first because it's your kingdom. So we'll give them the top corner here. So as addresses go, you know, that's kind of first on the list. What are Stonegate's colors again?
White background, purple arch, and it's got a purple embattled border.
Purple embattled border. You know what? Purple Gate. So doing that whole thing, usually it's nice if you can simplify it just a little bit. And of course, I don't recommend putting the laurel leaves on your groups. Even if you have a laurel, like it's a little weird because they're so small in your group stuff. So unless you're doing something for your group, like leave the laurel leaves off. So what I would suggest here is let's do a purple arch. You ready? Boom, done. Best purple arch that ever arched. So good, I'm just gonna copy and paste that into the other one. When laying out heraldry things, just put in a blob. And then let me do the kingdom stuff. Okay, so already, technically speaking, this would be fine because you don't really have to have Stonegate's full arms on there. If you wanted to do a purple embattled border, you can. So this is gonna look about as good as my arch. And so on. If you wanted to get that around your border, you can. It's gonna be pretty small, but it'll still look nice. And it's a nice division because white, you know, just white space tends, it's like, did it end or did they just give up? So like having a nice border on white, I actually really like that. Or you could not. So there's your super awesome Stonegate badge. I love it. Now, your heraldry, which is super awesome. You've got that, what's the name of the star? What's the charge here?
Compass rose.
Is it just compass rose? All right, compass rose and then the pomegranate, which are lovely. And just for fun, you know, for ease, we're just gonna make this flippy triangle. But once again, like whatever we're doing on here, like go wild with all the curves and the waves and everything else. And if you don't want to have the 2 ends, just have it taper down. It can be a little bit a little struggle for some people to try to like trace on the silk, which really wants you to go in a straight horizontal or vertical line because that's the weave on the silk. To trace a diagonal curved line, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. So it's really okay. But so much easier to do a straight line in paint. So here we are. So do you have any thoughts on a border? Whatever it is, I wouldn't do black and white unless it was alternating black and white on your black and white sections.
We could go golden white.
I was
Well,
gonna
no,
say,
metal,
like,
metal.
gold,
Gold
and red would
and
actually make your your charges pop pretty well.
that would work.
Let's do that. And people, some people have their borders going all the way to the edge. I didn't because I forgot each time. Or you could have your border, for instance, hold on one second. There we go. Or you could have your border like continue here, right next to your main block there, you know, your identifying block. And so on and so forth. And I'm going to do the divisions fairly large just for reasons of time. But like I recommend somewhere between 2 and 4 inches for these divisions. I'm going to copy and paste that. This is a thing of perfection right now. Can't get better than this. And so on. I'm not going to do the flippy ends because, oh, hold on. It's a different size. I'm not going to do the flippy ends just because, once again, it's harder to do diagonals in paint on the fly. Not impossible, though. All right, we'll get this all the way roughly down where we had the other ones. Kind of like watching paint dry here, isn't it? All right, so let's do, because we're gonna use, I'm gonna copy and paste, we're gonna use the really nice reds you've got here. So we'll do red. And some people try to get these things to match up. I'm going to try to alternate it, but once again, it's just not that important. Look, it's like it's already sort of off because I'm not measuring these things, and it's fine. It's all lovely. And then the same gold here. And the nice thing is you can lay it out and you can be like, oh yeah, or you know, that's not what I'm going for. I did one section where good times. One banner once where I had like my border was like red and purple and white or yellow or something like that. And it was like the maximum alertness border. And I'm like, that was something I probably should have drawn out before I did my thing. Okay, so I would recommend if laying this out, I like your division. And of course, you don't have to do a diagonal division. You can just do a vertical division. You can have no division whatsoever. You can do anything you want to. But it's a nice diagonal division. Let's play with it for right now. So I would kind of suggest not having the division start right at the beginning, which is going to give you a tiny little space for your compass rose. But if we start it like over a little bit where we're still using that first third to a half for your main charges. Come on. Don't make me have to kill you. All right, fine, we'll do it that way. Where we're still using that first third to a half for your charges, like so. And then let's get that compass rose in there. This is gonna look terrible. It'll be awesome. Okay. I'm just going to do just a little bit of erasing. Yeah, we'll do it like that. It'll be splotchy. As magnificent as the rest of this can be. There we go. Let's do that. So you can always have that repeated element, but one of the reasons why, Magdalena, for you, I'm not looking at doing anything repeated for your elements is because your background is perfect. Your background is the repeated element. It's gonna look super awesome. And actually, I love the part where this first part is the black background and you don't have the black background for this whole section over here, which gives you a limited amount of white ermine, I would say blur, white ermine on black background to hate. So that'll actually be better. And then let's do the same thing with this with this pomegranate. And then we'll see what these ermine spots look like. There's that. So like so, for instance. And then what we want to do is, this is a lovely ermine spot right here. You want whatever your background, repeated background, you don't want ermine spots that are super small, even though that may be accurate. You want something that you're going to be able to identify as that one's ermine and not flurry or whatever other repeated like fur color you could end up with. That's probably a little bit big because on the final banner, that's going to be like that's going to be like that big. So we're going to make that a little bit smaller here. All right. So I'm going to play with this just a little bit. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get this out of the way for just a moment and do just a little bit of background. Really? Return the line to its home. Okay, so that roughly where it goes. You probably have like graphics for just inserting this already, but here we are. Let's do this. And we're close, guys. All right, let me get rid of the bottom of this just a little bit here. So we'll kind of leave this a little bit of, exercise for the mind on how this could go a little bit more so, and so on. So imagine that the ermine spots continue on there. So that right there looks already like really like vibrant. You have everything I wish I had in a pennant or in a device for making into a pennant. So I'm not going to do the full background here, but as an example, and then have your white spots over here, repeated, and so on and so forth, and have a million, have a million white spots, or have a million ermine spots on white all over the place, and continue on down. So, Magdalena, what do you think about that border with as much as we've got laid out for your banner at this point?
It's not bad. It's nice and striking against the white.
So the one thing I would say, because the end of your stuff, the main portion of the bulk of your pennant, of your standard, has essentially a white background, white with spots on it. It is good to have a banner, an edge, it gets that whole like, is that the banner or is that the clouds behind the banner? Solution solved. But this is just one example of what an edge could look like. Some of the things I've done, and I freehand those. Braden will spend like literally 3 hours at Paint, like laying out every line on a banner. And I'm like, you still have to pencil that on, right? So doing things that are maybe like more diagonal stripey, so it almost looks like more like a rope. You could do like some zigzag type things to get something in there. None of your elements specifically lend themselves to a border. So you might play with the borders a little bit. I'd play with them like in this case right here, next to a layout of what your stuff would look like. Just so you can get that exact same feel. Like, okay, well, what does this look like with the ermine spots everywhere? Because the colors look good. They should. I took them from your heraldry. But whether or not that's what you want is an interesting question. But look at that archway. It's a nice archway, isn't it? You're welcome. So do you have thoughts on this? Is there a way you would want to lay this out a little differently? Because you could always pencil in, things in different ways. And usually when I do penciling in, let me give an example really quick, actually. What I've done here is try to give you like a really, actually fairly elaborate version of your banner. But another thing you could do is be like, okay, well, so get my squares done. And I'm not even going to talk about my squares, right? This is like, I'll just write Artemisia and Stonegate and like leave those alone because I know I can visualize those in my head. And then do like, okay, well, let's say I wanted like multiple stripes, so like maybe multiple divisions in here, and maybe I wanted extra compass roses, and then a pomegranate thing here. And so now we're just getting super basic colors. You know what, there we go. This is definitely what leaves look like for sure. And then we can just fill in like colors to just get that feel of like the pop of it. And this is black, and that's white. And maybe I'll draw some dots on it to give you, like, this is, when I do layouts, like for people, this is what your layout's gonna look like. Like, this is me with pencil on a piece of paper going like, and here, done. This is an example of your drawing, of your heraldry. But really, you can get an idea of the color layouts. Don't need
That one, exactly. All the basic little shape. We'll hang that one. It'll be, heraldry, by a toddler.
So it just gives you a feel for like placement and colors and just general lines and such. Yes, definitely do like that. But I really need you to get the dots, like the just exactly like that right there. That is perfect. Anyway, sorry, I started asking a question that I kind of cut you off. Is there anything else you'd be interested in seeing what your heraldry would look like on a banner like this?
Did no one else volunteer one? I don't want to take one time.
No, that's fair. And like I said, like a lot of those stuff.
But I can't send you anything right now. So if you want to bug Braden, he has my heraldry and Andy's heraldry.
That was Michelle, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let me just go to Oscar. How many Michelles with are in the society?
You don't mind, but I don't think you want to draw the potent.
You would think there's actually only not even more than a screen full. Okay, so let's get rid of this stuff here. Unless you want to keep this work of art. I mean, I assume you took a screenshot for that top one, right?
Naturally.
All right. All right, I'm sensing you're going to have something of a black and white theme. What do you think? You with me?
Just guessing, you know. And don't forget the kitty is Hello Kitty.
You know what? I'm going to do a lot of copy and paste here. Your mileage may vary. You do anything you want with that. So once again, you are, yours is actually a really good example of something where you've got a great background to do the repeated colors, but where if you do it just like it is, and I'll give you some examples here, you may not like it because your division is top to bottom, which means if you were to, I'm going to show you this if folks are, I can't tell who's watching the screen and who was watching the video, so I've been showing both of these. In the video, basically you'd have this much room for an elephant, so that's what, like, not quite 10 inches for the elephant, not quite 10 inches for the cat head, and you can make that work, but that's going to take up a very small amount of space. Whereas if you were to have an elephant take up a full amount of space and a cat head take up a full amount of space, they'd be bigger, more obvious, but then it doesn't look like your heraldry anymore. So let's take a look. Thank you. This is an excellent example. All right. Just because it's easy, I'll go ahead and, well, actually, let me ask. Michelle, do you want something on the first square?
Honestly, I have zero opinion. I leave this up to you people who are skilled.
Oh, you're skilled in many things. I'm going to give you Artemisia. You are Artemisia.
I am Artemisia.
Are Artemisia, and it's simple. I love straight lines. And unlike my blob drawings, like that looks super professional. Look at that stuff right there. All right, so let's, yeah, I know. Done. Well, stop that. Hold on. Was super professional, and then I turned half of it yellow. All right. There's that. All right, so if anyone's wondering, this person is from Artemisia. Now, I'm actually going to end up doing two layouts for you so you can kind of see what I'm talking about with the top to bottom. We'll do the stripies. Probably could have done that before I copied it, such is life. Okay, so stripies, the flippies. All right, so we got a triangle there. Okay, so in one example, we're going to do a split down the middle. That looks fairly middle. It goes nowhere near our flippy. I love it. It's perfect. Ship it. Pay no attention to that. And we'll leave you a border as well. We'll see what we want to do with it later. But with so much white there, I think you definitely are going to want a border. And also to measure before you do your flippies. This part at the end does not look as professional as I would, typically like in a finished product.
Shame on you. I'm not paying for this class now.
Well, shoot. I will refund all of your money back. Okay. So let's select the contents of the top portion of this. Your awesome elephant with those are ermine spots, correct?
Correct.
They're like shooting star ermine spots.
Braden found me the craziest ermine spots I think he could find.
Who's shocked? Anybody? Nobody? Nobody. All right, so getting your elephant, once again, kind of close to the pole, as close to the pole as you can. And then we'll get these ermine spots repeated. Let me do it that way for a moment. And so on and so forth. ad nauseum. Okay, and so on it for just a moment, just because it does look cool. I mean, repeated patterns, they look so nice. And I'll be able to copy that down. Okay, so you got your elephant. Now let's do the kitty head.
Hey Shelley, what would you do if you've got, like you said, not to have green and blue together?
Right.
Where mine is per pile green and blue. So what would you do with something like that?
I might, so the one thing I would definitely for sure do is the Gouda that I use, and this is obviously talking about the silk, the specific silk method. The Gouda that I use is typically black, which also won't show up there. So for instance, if you wanted any details in this black elephant, don't use black Gouda. But I do have silver Gouda. So at the very least, I would make the division line silver. But that's not going to show up from across camp at all. Look, this is your heraldry, like go with it. It'll be what it'll be. So that's one option. You might stick a white space in there, like fimbriate it a little bit maybe. So you've got options.
I'm fine with like popping with y'all.
All right. Squished your kitty head. Now, here, so the kitty, you're probably going to want it to be like pretty equal with Mr. Elephant here. So I'm moving him over and not putting him as close as I could to the border. Let's see here. And then we get some and so on and so forth with the awesome items that Braden found for you here. And then that kind of continues, and actually I'll show you the continuation. It'll look pretty cool. You might even want to like line up those fleurs from top to bottom so that they like aren't completely offset and cattywampus like I'm showing you right now. And so on and so forth forever. Good enough. Okay, so that's one possibility. Imagine that continuing on. So you already have your repeated pattern. Although for the record, you can repeat it more. You can put 3 elephants on it. So you can do elephant, 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 or like you can countercharge it, counterchange it and have like, elephant, kitty, elephant, or like any number of things. But this looks really good. It's actually very true to your heraldry, but it diminishes your elephant and your kitty a little bit. It makes them just not as big as they could be. Like look at the huge Artemisia there next to your elephant and kitty. And once again, I do recommend doing a border, even if that border is extremely simple and was just something as simple as that. A black border around the white, a white border around the black, just to kind of give that definition to your large white space. Let's play just a little bit in blob form with what it might look like to lay this out differently. So I'm going to give you, once again, I'm going to give you a border. Terrible, terrible border. The world's worst border. There you go. It's quality stuff right there. But then instead of doing that left to right, we're going to maybe do an up and down where you've got like a vertical division instead of a horizontal division. Oh, and by the way, you might consider making your border blue. You've got that tiny bit of blue there and the cat right there with the flower. Make that pop out a little bit. So like, you know, and I realize blue on black doesn't really show up, but white as a border doesn't super show up either. So you might consider like that as an example.
Actually, the bright blue will look really good because it will really show up.
It depends on how bright the blue is, right? So at dusk, that's not going to show up. But not everything's about dusk. In the middle of the day, that should show up. I think that looks good, and it kind of emphasizes that little element of color you've got in there. So I think it looks pretty cool. Let's do a blue border. Hold on. There we go. All right, so we'll give it like that. And let's do that. And let's really make sure you regret everything by doing the elephant first and then the cat after that. And you'll see what I mean. So we're gonna lay out the elephant, which definitely looks a lot like this star right here. There's your elephant, right? With me. And then you've got your kitty head, which is this. That's terrible. Sorry, just a second. Aw, here's your kitty head right there. With a pretty flower right there. Okay, so there's your kitty head. So let's just do these backgrounds for a moment. Let's fill in the various things. So it's a black elephant, white kitty head, and a blue flower with lots of, I wish I had like a stamper marker here, right? There's so many different paint programs, and here I am using Microsoft Paint.
I honestly didn't even realize you could do all of this using Microsoft Paint. So thank you for teaching us this.
Yeah, Microsoft Paint, it's a thing. It's a thing that you can do some stuff with, and then other things you can't do. And why are you not working? Oh, I see you. I actually have to drag the thing.
I actually kept the Paint version from Windows 7 and use it rather than this one.
It's doing like smudges instead of, there we go. So there's your dots. Now this is why you will hate yourself. Doing this black background around all these beautifully laid out white dots will make you regret everything, but it will look super cool. You will not have any regrets about a white background. So you could always swap these, but I really just wanted to show you how cool it would look like if you decided to make your life hell. So there is your black elephant with white spots, your white kitty with a flower with black, with the white spots around it. And then the border, you could do a similar sort of thing. I think at this point in time, because you've got, you could do like a black border here and a blue border there, or whatever. I don't personally like changing my colors halfway down in kind of an abrupt fashion. If I'm gonna change my colors on one line, I'll do like the multi-blocks where maybe it's black and white and blue or something like that. I do like the blue. It kind of adds that color to what's a catching but monochromatic device other than that. So anyway, that might be interesting to do. But if I were going to do something where I wanted multiple colors along the top, let's just really quick do that. What am I doing? No, I want to do a line. There we go. Black. So I'm just going to do some divisions here. All right, copy and paste that. Glad I could show you all the wondrous virtues of Microsoft Paint. And then from here you can imagine, and so on and so forth. And then do the same thing down here. So the downside of doing, the upside is I think it looks pretty cool. The downside of doing all of these different bars is that when you do the silk dyeing, every time your Gouda touches the edge of a silk banner, you have to like do a little bit of extra work because you have to go like, you get to get the edge of the banner and then you have to go all the way around the rolled hem, or else the silk will or the dye will make its way through like the rolled hem and bleed. So it's totally doable, but just a little bit of extra work. Okay, so let's try that. So what do you think about like, let's do blue and black with a repeated white maybe. We'll try it. So let's do black. And then just so you can see how this will look. Something like that. Like something like that. So
Okay, that looks freaking awesome. Question number 2, when are you coming down to do this? Because, oh my gosh.
if you say it to Braden, he'll just do it in my garage, but I'd rather you do it, just saying. Let's see here. I want to teach you. And so on. So that right there, like it pops out kind of nicely. You can see where you don't necessarily have to have super contrasting colors. Doing that like multiple color sort of thing, it can look really nice. So that's an example. Thank you for letting me play with your heraldry. And that right there, that star and heart, that's it. That's your banner. You're welcome. All right.
Hey, I've got a little bit of a question.
Yeah, please.
Have you, so this is a technique thing. I've seen the frames that you have, and I wonder if you've ever tried to like lay out the banner on paper and then find a way to mount it underneath the silk itself as a kind of cartoon.
That would be, I would think that would be very challenging because when you stretch out the silk onto, so actually, let me just start with yes. We actually did exactly that our very first time that we did this in my garage in a different house as a baronial project. We stretched out the silk and then we tried to draw it from there. Put over a cartoon or free-handed, whatever. And it's not the worst idea. There's 2 reasons why I don't like it. One of them may be more relevant than the other. One, frames are a finite resource. I don't have enough frames for the number of people that come over. So usually we have a couple waves. So if somebody is penciling their stuff on using a frame, then that's a frame that people can't use for dyeing. And you have to have a frame for dyeing. So that's one reason. But if you have your own frame and you're using it, then that reason isn't really relevant. The other problem is as you stretch out your silk, it distorts. So it's stretched this way and then that way a little bit and so on. So what seems like a straight line isn't. Also, like it's hard to get it like onto that cartoon and you can't get a good pencil impression. You have to have it against like a table or something. So like silk frame on a table with the silk stretched out so that you can press down onto the silk and draw over your cartoon. So it's all possible. And yes, we have tried it. We found that whereas if somebody shows up to my house for a silk banner making workshop, and let's just say that they've got their idea in their head, but not on their silk yet. If they just lay it out, if they just draw it onto the silk, I find people can easily get through in a day. But if they try to stretch it out and then draw it and whatnot, it takes longer. Also, and here's one thing I feel very strongly about, these main divisions, these horizontal lines, these vertical lines, even these diagonal ones to a certain extent, are so very easy to get right in the silk, because the silk, especially horizontal and vertical lines, the silk has a grain. And you can just find where you want it to be, and with your pencil, just trace it along, and it'll follow that grain, unless you're on a wood table that also has a grain. Anyway, it'll follow that grain, and it can make it very easy, which means what you really need printed out and ready to trace is your elephant and your kitty. Whereas doing the whole paper layout with the Artemisia and spots in every single spot and everything like that, it's kind of wasteful of paper. It basically ends up taking a lot more resources. I know that silk banner making is like, for me, is like any other craft, where I have probably at this point in time made or helped make over 200 banners. So what, to me, I'm like shoot, seriously, and you're done. Other people want to take more time and whatnot. I will not let those people take up a frame at my house during the main workshop to do that, because mine's like bulk, get it done.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had a frame at your house, like, would it work? Yeah. Will it take longer? I think so. And it'll take up more paper and whatever else, but it'll work. Yes. Your straight lines may not be as straight as you thought.
Okay.
Because of that distorting of stuff. But yeah, totally work. And anything people want to do, like before they show up to get their stuff penciled out, or on their own frame, is totally fine. I just am like, no, let's go. Come on, this is an assembly line, let's go. So, but that was a good question, thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, no, we really did do that. The first time we ever did a banner making workshop in Arnhold, we did it on the silk, and we literally, the first day was just spent, I think we got through Gouda for most of the banners, but many of them may have only gotten penciled on and put onto the frames. And then we came back the next weekend, and somebody dyed my baby blue. Not joking. What the hell, people? They got blue dye all over my brand new baby. She wasn't even a month old. So my friend looks at my daughter, and she goes, "What color was your baby when you left her?" And of course, I'm a new mom. This is my brand new newborn child.
Oh.
My baby is dying. Oh my God. Like, I thought it was suffocating.
Oh my.
It was so special. So anyway, yeah, there was a lot of things that happened in that first workshop that I'd like to not repeat. So anyway, yeah. Who all on here has seen the silk dyeing process? Or who would kind of like a run through of it?
I've seen it before.
Yeah, I've seen it, but I haven't done it.
Okay.
I did it last summer.
Excellent. Yes, you did. So I'm going to leave that. There's a link in the PDF, in the PowerPoint, and I'm going to post that to the list somehow in the next day or so. But for the record, if you ever just Google my name, which is Jilliana Atwater, spelled correctly, you can get to my webpage, and that's got all my handouts on it, including at least an earlier version of this particular handout without the history on it. I'll get the new version up on it, but so I've got my class handout, and it's got making a silk standard on there. That's like the process of penciling it on and putting it on the frame and goudaing and so on and so forth, and then dyeing my baby blue. Anything else? This has been like an hour and a half, so like this, I think the examples were really good to give people kind of ideas of things they could. Any other questions? Hearing none. And on the format, this is our first online class. I'm going to look into posting this video. I'll chop off this end bit. So if anybody has any questions or anything, did like the sound work okay? Me with the video, any other thoughts?
Everything looked good from here.
Yeah, it was fun.
Keep doing it.